Good afternoon, this is Sergeant Montoya with the 61st MedCom Recruiting. So today we're going to go over warrant officer ranks. Okay, so what are warrant officers? Warrant officers are technical or flight specialties within the Army. Typically they're found between the in S1 shops, S2 shops, wherever you can find technical experts, that's where you're usually found. They go from Warrant Officer 1 to Chief Warrant Officer 5, and progression is typically about 3 to 4 years depending on how long the rank is. So, what are warrant officers' insignias? All warrant officers have a silver bar as the backing. The insignia within that bar is what changes. So, Warrant Officer 1 is the first with warrant officer. You're fresh out of warrant officer candidate school, which typically, to become a warrant officer, you need to be an E6 or an E5 and go into a slot that is already there for your job. Okay, so if I was the human resources specialist as a sergeant, I would go to a human resources technician, which would be a warrant officer slot. So if I am a W01, I am to be addressed as Mr. or Mrs. You can't say sir or ma'am, but Mr. or Mrs. is the preferred for warrant officers. So after that, you progress to a chief warrant officer. So from Chief Warrant Officer 2 to Chief Warrant Officer 5, you can address them as Chief, Mr. or Mrs. or sir or ma'am. But from there on, the only one you don't call chief is a Warrant Officer 1. So it just basically progresses. So Warrant Officer 1 has a silver bar with one black square in the center. Chief Warrant Officer 2 adds another black square. Chief Warrant Officer 3 adds 3 black squares, so they have 3 black squares. And then Chief Warrant Officer 4 will be 4 black squares, literally just stacked on top inside of that silver bar. If it's on OCP, it's going to be blacked out or subdued. Finally, you have Chief Warrant Officer 5, which instead of those squares, you'll have one continuous line. So a silver bar with one black line going straight down the center. The only branch that does not have warrant officers is the Air Force. But for us, we still have warrant officers. You can find them in technical trades. They're not as big in numbers because they're the technical experts, but you can still commit and look for A grades. There's plenty of MOSs. You can always ask me what TOE and slots we have for warrant officers within the 61st MedCom. All right, you have a nice day.